The day they tore out my ramp like it was trash, my 12-year-old dog fell trying to jump the step, and my 78-year-old mother cried on the sidewalk. I stood there, frozen, watching my landlord Brad smile as the construction crew hauled away the wooden structure that had been my lifeline for 6 months. 6 months since my knee surgery. 6 months of physical therapy. 6 months of barely keeping it together while caring for my mother who had moved in with me after her stroke. But Brad saw dollar signs. Tell me what city you're watching this from in the comments below. Is the housing market this brutal where you live? Because what happened next will make you question everything about tenant rights in America. Now, let's jump into the story. My name is Meredith Blake. I'm 48, a former nurse turned freelance book editor, and until that Tuesday morning in September, I thought I understood how low people could go for money. I was wrong. It started 3 months earlier when my previous landlords, the Johnsons, sold the house I'd been renting for 4 years. They were an elderly couple moving to Florida, and they'd given me plenty of notice. What they hadn't told me was who they were selling to. Brad and Chelsea Whitmore. Late 30s, Tesla driving, juice cleansing, house flipping vultures who saw my charming 1940s rental house as their next HGTV project. The first red flag? They showed up unannounced the day after closing, measuring my front porch while I was inside working. My little Shih Tzu, Pickle, went ballistic, barking at the window as Chelsea pointed at my wheelchair ramp and made a disgusted face. See, I'd had that ramp installed after my knee replacement surgery. Legally, with permits. The Johnsons had even helped pay for it because they were decent human beings who understood that accessibility isn't optional when your tenant literally cannot walk upstairs. The second red flag came in the form of a text message. Not a call, not a letter, a text. Hi Meredith, so excited to be your new landlords. Quick question, when does your lease end? Chelsea, my lease had 8 months left. 8 months. But here's where I made my first mistake. I replied honestly, Hi Chelsea, my lease runs through May. The Johnsons should have provided you with all the paperwork. Also, just FYI, my mother Dorothy will be staying with me for a few months while she recovers from her stroke. Thanks. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Meredith, it's Brad. Listen, we need to talk about that ramp. My stomach dropped. Pickle must have sensed my anxiety because he jumped into my lap, all 12 pounds of therapeutic fluff trying to comfort me. What about it? I asked, though I already knew. Well, it's just that we're planning to list the property in spring, and the ramp really affects the curb appeal. We've had a realtor come by, and she says it could knock $20,000 off the asking price. $20,000, he said it like I'd personally stolen it from his pocket. Brad, I need that ramp. I'm still in physical therapy. My mother uses a walker. We literally cannot get in and out without it. Hey, right, I hear you. But surely by spring you'll be better? We could remove it then? My mother's condition is permanent, Brad. And the ramp stays until my lease ends. It's covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Silence. Then, we'll see about that. He hung up, but wait, because this is where the story takes its first dark turn. 3 weeks passed. Brad and Chelsea started their renovations on the exterior, power washing, painting the shutters a trendy charcoal gray, installing Ring cameras everywhere. They'd show up at random times, always with contractors, always taking photos. My mother Dorothy was getting anxious. At 78, with limited mobility and recovering from a stroke that had taken her independence, she didn't need this stress. Neither did I. Between caring for her, working my editing deadlines, and trying to heal my own body, I was running on fumes. Then came the notice. It was taped to my door on a Friday afternoon. Notice of renovation, porch repairs scheduled for Monday, September 12th. Please remove all personal items from porch area. Personal items? The only thing on my porch was a small table, 2 chairs, and the ramp that was bolted to the structure. I immediately called Brad. Voicemail. I texted, no response. I emailed with photos of the ramp, explaining again that it was medically necessary and legally protected. Saturday passed. Sunday passed. Nothing. Monday morning, 7 a.m., I woke to the sound of power tools. I threw on my robe, grabbed my cane, and hobbled to the front door. Through the window I could see 3 men with crowbars ripping my ramp apart. Stop! I screamed, yanking open the door. Stop right now. Brad stood there in his CrossFit shirt and designer jeans, sipping a green smoothie. Morning, Meredith, Don't worry, we're installing new porch boards. This old ramp was a safety hazard anyway. I have a legal right to that ramp. Actually, Chelsea appeared from behind their Tesla, waving a piece of paper. According to our contractor, it wasn't up to code. We're liable if someone gets hurt. It was a lie. I knew it, they knew it, but the ramp was already in pieces. How am I supposed to get my mother to her doctor's appointment this afternoon? My voice was shaking. Dorothy was standing behind me in her nightgown, holding on to her walker, tears streaming down her face. I'm sure you'll figure it out, Brad said. Uber has wheelchair-accessible vehicles, right? That's when Pickle decided to be a hero. My little dog darted past me, trying to get to the men destroying our ramp. But without the ramp, there was now a 2-foot drop from the doorway to the ground. Pickle didn't see it in time. He jumped and fell hard, yelping in pain. I screamed, Dorothy screamed. Even one of the workers looked horrified. I dropped my cane trying to get to him, and ended up falling to my knees in the doorway, crying as Pickle limped back to me, his front paw lifted, trembling. Now look what you've done, Chelsea said, as if this was somehow my fault. You should keep your dog leashed. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom. It gives you clarity. And in that moment, holding my injured dog while my elderly mother sobbed behind me, I found mine. They wanted to play dirty? Fine. But they had no idea who they were messing with. That afternoon was hell. I had to carry Pickle to the car, then physically support my mother down the steps while she clung to me, terrified of falling. 3 neighbors watched from their windows. Not one offered to help. The vet said Pickle had a sprained paw. Nothing broken, thank God, but he needed rest and pain medication. $200 I didn't have. My mother missed her doctor's appointment. The office charged a $100 no-show fee. But while Pickle rested on his favorite blanket, and Dorothy took her anxiety medication to calm down, I did what I do best. Research. First I took photos. Every angle of the missing ramp. The debris they'd left scattered on the lawn. The new 2-foot drop that was actually more of a safety hazard than my ramp ever was. Then I started making calls. The city building department confirmed what I already knew. My ramp had been legally installed with proper permits. More importantly, removing it without notice or replacement violated multiple codes. The ADA hotline gave me even better ammunition. What Brad and Chelsea had done wasn't just wrong, it was federally illegal. As landlords, they were required to provide reasonable accommodations for disabled tenants. Removing an existing accommodation, that was grounds for a lawsuit. But the real gold came from my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who knocked on my door that evening. I recorded everything, she whispered, handing me her phone. That man, Brad. He was laughing about it. Said once you moved out, they could flip this place for double what they paid. The video was damning. Brad telling the workers to make it quick before she can call anyone. Chelsea saying, she'll thank us when she sees how nice the porch looks without that eyesore. But the worst part, Brad's final comment, 3 more months and we can evict her anyway. Her lease has a clause about property modifications. That ramp violated it. Except it didn't. I'd read my lease a dozen times. The Johnsons had specifically amended it to allow the ramp installation. Brad and Chelsea were banking on me not knowing my rights. Big mistake, huge. Because you see, before I was a book editor, before I was a nurse, I was a paralegal. And I'd kept every single piece of paper, every text, every email. That night, while Pickle slept beside me with his paw wrapped in a tiny bandage, I compiled everything into a folder labeled evidence. Then I did 3 things that would change everything. Tuesday morning, I filed a complaint with the city building department. With photos. Tuesday afternoon, I filed an ADA violation claim with the Department of Justice. With videos. Tuesday evening, I called Adult Protective Services about the endangerment of my elderly mother. With documentation. Wednesday I waited. Thursday I waited. Friday morning, Karma arrived in a city-issued sedan. I was at my computer, editing a romance novel, ironically enough, when I heard Brad's voice outside, loud and agitated. What do you mean we don't have permits? Through my window, I watched as a man in a hard hat and reflective vest held up an official-looking clipboard. 2 more inspectors were photographing the porch. Sir, you've done exterior modifications without proper permits. You removed a licensed accessibility structure without authorization. And you've created an egress hazard for tenants with disabilities. It's our property. Chelsea's shrill voice cut through the morning air. We can do what we want. Actually, ma'am, you can't. I'm issuing a stop work order effective immediately. All renovations cease until you're in compliance. Brad's face was purple. This is ridiculous. We have buyers coming to view the property next week. Then I suggest you work quickly to resolve these violations. The fines start at $5,000 and increase daily. But wait, it gets better. The inspector turned to walk toward my door, and Brad grabbed his arm.
Never touch.
The inspector, sir, I'm going to need you to step back. That's assault of a city official. I barely touched you. The inspector pulled out his phone. I'm calling for police backup. Step back now. Chelsea was crying. Actually crying. This is that woman's fault. She's vindictive. She's trying to ruin us. That's when Inspector Harrison knocked on my door. Yes, I learned his name. Gregory Harrison, 15 years with the city and absolutely zero patience for slumlords. Miss Blake, I need to document your accessibility needs and the removal of your accommodation. I invited him in, offered him coffee, showed him everything. Pickle, still limping, performed perfectly on cue, struggling to navigate the doorway. Dorothy came out with her walker explaining how terrified she was of falling. Inspector Harrison took notes. Lots of notes. Miss Blake, what they did is not just a building code violation. It's a Fair Housing Act violation. A federal offense. You have grounds for a significant lawsuit. I just want my ramp back, I said. And maybe an apology. He looked at me over his glasses. You're entitled to much more than that. Document everything. Every day you can't safely access your home. Every medical appointment missed, every penny spent on alternative accommodations. As he left, he handed me his card. The city takes this very seriously. Expect more inspectors on Monday. Brad and Chelsea were still outside, now arguing with each other. This is your fault. Chelsea screamed. You said she was just some crippled nobody who wouldn't fight back. Crippled nobody, I smiled. They had no idea the storm that was coming. Monday brought a parade of city officials, building inspectors, ADA compliance officers, fire marshals, even someone from the health department. Turns out when you violate one code, they check them all. Brad tried to approach me that afternoon. All fake smiles and concerned neighbor energy. Meredith, surely we can work this out between us. No need for all this bureaucracy. I was sitting on my porch chair, the one I'd dragged outside to watch the show. Pickle was in my lap, paw still bandaged, growling softly at Brad. You removed my medical equipment and called me a crippled nobody. We're past working it out. His smile dropped. You recorded us. Your wife has quite the voice. It carries. What do you want? Money? Free rent? What? Here's the thing about bullies. They always think everyone else is as transactional as they are. I want my ramp back. New one. Up to code. Installed by end of week. Fine. Done. Call off the city. Oh Brad, the city is just getting started. Did you know you also removed a load-bearing support when you tore out my ramp? The porch is structurally compromised now. His face went white. That's impossible. Inspector Harrison disagrees. You might want to check your email. He pulled out his phone, and I watched his expression crumble as he read what I assumed was the stop work order extending to all renovations, interior and exterior, pending structural engineering reports. You did this, he hissed. You planned this. No, Brad, you did this. I just reported it. But karma wasn't done with Brad and Chelsea yet. Not even close. Wednesday brought the best surprise. Remember those buyers Brad mentioned? The ones coming to view the property? They showed up. In a Mercedes, old money types with pearls, and pressed khakis. They took one look at the stop work orders plastered across the front door, the missing ramp, the chaos of half-finished renovations, and didn't even get out of their car. Chelsea ran after them in her yoga pants. Literally ran, begging them to come back. I may have been sipping tea very visibly on my porch chair, with Dorothy beside me, and Pickle wearing a tiny bandage like a badge of honor. The buyers never came back. But Thursday? Thursday was when everything exploded. I was editing a thriller novel, ironically about revenge, when the doorbell rang. Brad stood there with an envelope. You've been served, he said, smirking. I opened it right there in front of him. An eviction notice citing lease violations, property damage from the ramp installation, and disturbing the peace. Brad, you can't evict someone for having a disability accommodation. Watch me. You have 30 days. He turned to leave and that's when I played my ace. Brad, you might want to check your mail too. What? Just check it. See, while Brad had been plotting his eviction revenge, my old paralegal network had been busy. Remember I mentioned I used to work in law? Well, my best friend from those days, Sheila Rodriguez, was now a partner at Rodriguez, Palmer and Associates. They specialized in one thing: Fair Housing Act violations, and they just sent Brad and Chelsea a letter of intent to sue for $2 million. Brad's phone rang as he was walking away. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see him stop mid-stride, his shoulders tensing. He turned back to look at me, and for the first time I saw fear in his eyes. That evening, Chelsea showed up, alone. She'd been crying, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Please, she said. Please, drop this. We'll lose everything. I should have felt sympathy. I didn't. You took away my mother's ability to leave her home safely. You injured my dog. You called me a crippled nobody. I was frustrated. I didn't mean it. We put our entire savings into this flip. If we can't sell by December, we'll be bankrupt. Then you should have thought about that before breaking federal law. She pulled out her phone, showing me pictures. Her and Brad's wedding. Their kids. Wait, kids? You have children. Twins. They're 3. Please. I'm begging you. We'll rebuild your ramp. We'll pay for Pickle's vet bills. We'll give you 3 months free rent. Anything. I looked at the photos. 2 little boys with Brad's eyes and Chelsea's smile. But then I looked at Dorothy, who'd fallen that morning trying to navigate the steps. At Pickle, who still wouldn't put weight on his paw. At myself, who'd had to crawl up the steps last night when my knee gave out. Build the ramp. Cover all medical costs. And one more thing. Anything. I want it in writing that any future tenant with disabilities will have full accommodation rights. No questions asked. Ever. She nodded frantically. Yes, yes, of course. And Chelsea? The ramp gets a ribbon-cutting ceremony. With my mother cutting the ribbon. Her jaw clenched, but she nodded. You have 48 hours. But here's where the story takes its darkest turn. Because Chelsea agreed to everything. She just didn't tell Brad. Saturday morning, contractors arrived to rebuild the ramp. Beautiful work, actually. Smooth rails, perfect grade, even a small platform at the top for Dorothy to rest. Brad was nowhere to be seen, but Chelsea supervised everything, nervous and fidgety. Where's your husband? I asked. Golf. He doesn't know about this yet. Red flag, massive red flag. Chelsea, this needs to be legal. Both of you need to sign off. He will. I'll make sure he will. But while Chelsea was managing the ramp construction, Brad was across town meeting with a different contractor. How do I know? Mrs. Chen, my neighbor, saw him at Home Depot with blueprints. Blueprints that showed the house without a ramp. He was planning to tear it down again the moment I dropped the lawsuit. Sunday evening, everything came to a head. Brad came home, saw the new ramp, and lost his mind. What did you do? He screamed at Chelsea, loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear. I fixed it. I saved us from a lawsuit. You stupid woman. I had it handled. The fight escalated. Doors slammed. Chelsea cried. At one point Brad threw something because we heard glass shatter. Then silence. Monday morning, Chelsea showed up with divorce papers and a black eye she'd tried to cover with concealer. He hit you? I asked, genuinely shocked despite everything. Pushed. I fell into the door frame. She touched her eye gingerly. I'm done. With him, with this house, with everything. Chelsea, you need to file a police report. No, I just need this to end. I'm signing my half of the house over to him. Let him deal with the consequences. She handed me a document. This guarantees your ramp stays. Brad can't remove it without facing criminal charges. I made sure of that. Why are you doing this? Because I finally realized something. We became monsters trying to make money. I saw how you protected your mother, your dog, and it made me think about what kind of example I'm setting for my boys. Plot twist. Chelsea wasn't the villain. She was another victim of Brad's greed. She left that day and never came back. Later I learned she'd moved in with her parents, filed for divorce, and got full custody of the twins. But Brad doubled down. With Chelsea gone and the stop work order still in effect, Brad was desperate. The December sale deadline was approaching, and he was hemorrhaging money on mortgage payments for a house he couldn't renovate or sell. He tried everything. Bribes, threats. He even had his lawyer send cease and desist letters claiming I was harassing him. Then he made his fatal mistake. November 1st, I came home from Dorothy's doctor appointment to find an eviction crew at the house. Brad stood there with a court order. Emergency eviction, he said. Unsafe living conditions due to the structural damage you caused. The damage you caused by removing my ramp. Prove it. The crew started moving toward my door, but I held up my phone. Live streaming, I said. 42,000 viewers watching right now. It was a lie. I was just recording, but Brad didn't know that. Turn it off. No, everyone needs to see how you treat disabled tenants. Pickle started barking from inside. Dorothy appeared at the window, looking terrified. Ma'am, one of the movers said to me quietly, we can't actually evict you without proper notice. This paper isn't valid. Brad heard him. I'm paying you to move her out. Sir, that would be illegal. We're leaving. The crew left. Brad didn't. You've ruined everything, he said, stepping closer. My marriage, my business, everything. You ruined your own life, Brad. That's when he snapped. He grabbed my cane and threw it across the yard. Oops, he said. Looks like you'll have to crawl. I fell to my knees, genuinely unable to stand without support. Pickle went wild inside, scratching at the door. Brad laughed, actually laughed. But remember those Ring cameras Brad had installed? They were still recording, and they were connected to the cloud account that Chelsea still had access to. Within an hour, the video was everywhere. Chelsea had sent it to the news, to social media, to the city council. The headline read, Local landlord assaults disabled tenant, on camera. Brad was arrested that night. The assault charges were just the beginning. With Brad in custody, investigators uncovered a pattern. 3 previous properties, 5 other tenants forced out through illegal means. But here's the beautiful irony. Brad's arrest triggered a clause in his mortgage. The bank could call in the full loan if the borrower was convicted of a crime related to the property. He was forced to sell, fast, at a massive loss. And guess who bought it? The Johnsons, my original landlords. They'd seen the news from Florida and were horrified. They flew back, bought the house at foreclosure price, and the first thing they did was knock on my door. Meredith, Mr. Johnson said, we are so sorry. We had no idea who we were selling to. We want to make this right, Mrs. Johnson added. Stay as long as you need. Same rent, forever if you want. But by then I was done. The stress had taken its toll on Dorothy, on Pickle, on me. We needed a fresh start. I appreciate that, I said. But we're moving. My mother needs to be closer to her doctors, and I need some peace. They understood. They even offered to help us move. But first we had that ribbon-cutting ceremony. December 15th, a surprisingly warm Saturday. The new ramp was decorated with white ribbons and winter flowers. Mrs. Chen brought cookies. Other neighbors I'd never even talked to showed up to support us. Dorothy, dressed in her best purple coat, cut the ribbon with oversized scissors. Pickle wore a tiny bow tie and walked up the ramp without limping for the first time in 3 months. This ramp, Dorothy said, her voice stronger than it had been in months, represents more than accessibility. It represents dignity, respect, the right to exist in spaces without apologizing for our needs. The local news covered it. The story went viral. Again, Brad pled guilty to assault and got 6 months in jail plus 2 years probation. He also had to pay a $50,000 settlement, which covered all our moving expenses and then some. Chelsea sent a card. Thank you for showing me who I really was before it was too late. Starting over with the boys. Living with truth now. We moved on January 1st. New year, new beginning. A small house with no steps, wide doorways, and a landlord who specialized in accessible housing. I'm writing this from my new home office, watching Pickle chase butterflies in our fenced yard. He runs without any sign of his old injury. Dorothy is in the living room, hosting her stroke support group. She's become an advocate for elderly rights, speaking at community centers about housing discrimination. The Johnsons turned my old rental into permanent accessible housing. The ramp we fought for is still there, painted a cheerful blue with a small plaque. Access is a right, not a privilege. Brad, he works at a car dealership now. Someone sent me a photo of him in a polyester polo, and I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger, nothing. Chelsea rebuilt her life. She works for a nonprofit that helps disabled veterans find housing. We don't talk, but I respect her journey. And me, I'm still editing novels, but now I also write stories about fighters, survivors, people who refuse to be invisible. Because here's what I learned. They can take your ramp, They can challenge your right to exist in spaces. They can call you names and try to break you. But when you have truth on your side, when you document everything, when you refuse to crawl, when they take your cane, you don't just win, you change the game entirely. The city changed its ordinances because of our case. Removing accessibility features is now a criminal offense with mandatory jail time. They call it Dorothy's Law. My mother cried when they told her. I matter, she said. We matter. Yes, Mom, we do. And to Brad, if you're reading this, know that every accessible ramp in this city is a reminder of your failure. Every protected tenant is your legacy. You didn't just lose a house flip, you helped create a movement. Though I bet that wasn't quite the property value you were hoping to add. Subscribe if you believe everyone deserves dignity. Comment your own story of standing up to injustice. And remember, document everything. Know your rights, and never ever apologize for taking up space in this world. Some people see a ramp and see an eyesore affecting property value. I see a bridge to freedom, and that, my friends, is priceless.